Welcome back everyone to Gotcha Interact. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the first half of the 2.7 Star Rail version banners today. And the first character that's going to be on this banner is Sunday, and alongside of him is Jing Yuan. So let's go through both of these banners and really decide whether or not these characters are a good pulling option for you. And if you do enjoy the video, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button and check out the rest of our channel for other content you might find enjoyable. We do also have a Discord that you can join. We also have a link for that in the description, so do check that out. Now, onto the video.
So the first character we want to talk about is looking at Sunday. Brand new character, really kind of getting some interesting vibes. Now, he's already been a part of the game already, and a pretty big part as well, especially in the world that we are currently in Penacony. But let's go ahead and look at his kit, how he's going to work as a character pretty quickly, kind of just look at what he has to offer. So in his basic attack, it's pretty simple, just 100% of his attack to one designated enemy, pretty simple there. But his skill is where he really starts to shine, as well as his ultimate. Looking at his skill, it's called Penison of Paper and Rights. It states that it enables one designated ally character and their summon to immediately take action and increase their damage dealt by 30%. If the target has a summon, then additionally increase the damage boost of the effect by 50% for 2 turns. So this entire thing is going to last 2 turns. After using the skill on the Beautified, which Rift will actually go over in a second with the ultimate, you will then recover 1 skill point. After Sunday uses this ability on characters following the Path of Harmony, the immediate action effect cannot be triggered though.
Looking quickly at Sunday's ultimate, he will regenerate energy by 20% of his max energy for one designated ally. So this isn't on him. This is kind of like Jing Yuan or Hua even, where he's actually giving some energy to the character. So that's already pretty good. On top of that, he will put both that target he's giving energy to plus their summon into the beautified state. This state increases their crit damage by an amount equal to 30% of Sunday's crit damage plus 12%. So kind of reminding me of Sparkle or Bronya. So giving them the crit damage is really good. At the start of Sunday's each turn, reduces the duration of the beautified state by 1 turn, and it lasts for a total of 3 turns. It also only takes effect on the most recent target of his ultimate, excluding Sunday himself. And when Sunday becomes down, the beautified state will dissipate on whoever it's on.
Looking a little bit further as well, he does have a talent that is pretty helpful. When you use the skill, it will also increase the target's crit rate by 20%, lasting for 3 turns. So I know that you were talking about Rift a little bit, as he was similar to what we kind of see in some other characters, specifically Sparkle. And the great thing here is not only does he give crit damage, but also crit rate. So it's specifically just in his actual kit. So it's great to see some extra differences in both crits as well as some extra energy, kind of dipping into a lot of things here. But looking at the other character that we have here, Rift, what do we see in Jing Yuan? And a little bit of an older character.
Yeah, well, yeah, he, like you said, is an older character, so he's been around for a very long time. Most people know who he is at this point, but he's more of a basic character. He's an erudition character, likes to deal most of his damage to multiple enemies on the field, as that's just what erudition follows. But let's go through his kit real quick. His basic attack isn't crazy, it's just single target, going to deal 100% of his attack to a single enemy, and that's assuming you have the basic attack at level 6. But looking at the skill, assuming you have this at level 10, all the way leveled, the skill is going to deal lightning damage equal to 100% of Jing Yuan's attack to all enemies and increase Lightning Lord's hits per action by 2 for the next turn. And we'll talk about that a little bit more just here in a minute. But Vixen, what can you tell us about with the ultimate and maybe the talent as well?
Well, the ultimate states that it is more of an AoE hit, dealing lightning damage equal to 200% of Jing Yuan's attack to all enemies, and increases Lightning Lord's hits per action by 3 for the next turn. His talent then has something a little bit different and kind of goes into the idea of that Lightning Lord. Summons Lightning Lord at the start of the battle. Lightning Lord has 60 base speed and 3 base hits per action. When the Lightning Lord takes its action, its hits are considered as follow-up attacks, with each hit dealing lightning damage equal to 66% of Jing Yuan's attack to a single random enemy. And enemies adjacent to it also receive lightning damage as well, equal to 25% of the damage that was dealt to the primary target. The Lightning Lord's hits per action can reach a max of 10. Every time the Lightning Lord's hits per action increases by 1, its speed increases by 10. After the Lightning Lord's action ends, its speed and hits per action return to their base values for the next rotation. When Jing Yuan is knocked down, the Lightning Lord will also disappear, and when Jing Yuan is affected by any crowd control debuff, the Lightning Lord is also unable to take action as well. So some very interesting things that we kind of see with the actual characters. Let's go ahead and quickly talk about Sunday's specific light cone here. So Rift, seeing in this Harmony light cone that we have for him, what do we see here?
Well, his light cone is called a Grounded Ascent, but looking at the superimposition, and I'm just going to assume this is S1, just one copy of the weapon. So the superimposition states that after the wearer uses skill or ultimate on one ally character, the wearer regenerates 6 energy and the ability's target receives 1 stack of him for 3 turns, stacking up to 3 times. Each stack of him increases its holder's damage dealt by 15%. After every 2 instances of skill or ultimate the wearer uses on one of these ally characters, you will recover 1 skill point. So obviously very tailored for Sunday, but honestly, the way it still, is, it's kind of tailored to Sunday, but it's not like restrictive to something in his kit or something that only works within his kit, like his talent or whatnot. So even though it's a Harmony light cone designed for Sunday, you can actually, I can see this being used on some other Harmony units. Now, are the other Harmony units' personal light cones going to be better? Of course, by probably a good amount too at that. But seeing that you can use the skill or the ultimate, you're going to gain energy for that Harmony unit that's using this light cone, but also just give more universal damage to whoever they're affecting with their skill. So like, let's say you have this on Sparkle, for an example. If Sparkle's using this light cone and uses her skill to give her crit damage to another ally, she then will gain some energy, but also give that ally more just damage based on 50%, based on how many stacks of him that Sparkle is able to transfer over through this light cone. So it still has some uses outside of Sunday, but once again, I'm just going to say, if you want to get the best light cones for characters, their personals are just always better. But this light cone, compared to others, and for most of the time, this light cone is actually a little bit more versatile than what we might be used to seeing.
I agree. Also, characters like Bronya could really like this. Ting Yun as well, another character we talked about not too long ago, considering they work very similarly to Sparkle as well. And Ting Yun having the idea of wanting energy for herself so she can give energy to others is also extremely good, because both of her skill and ultimates can also work on one designated ally as well. So very, very good stuff that we see, and kind of some interesting ones to be used even on a 4-star character as well. Looking a little bit further, let's talk about Jing Yuan's light cone. Once again, an older light cone, but with it following the path of erudition, it can have some uses on some other characters, but mainly looking at it at S1, it increases the wearer's crit damage by 36%. It also increases the damage dealt by the wearer's skill and ultimate damage by 18%. After the wearer uses a skill or an ultimate, gains Somnus Corpus. Upon triggering a follow-up attack, consumes Somnus Corpus and increases damage dealt by follow-up attacks by 48%. Now, obviously, considering this is following so heavily into what he does, his skill and ultimate are extremely there. He's a damage dealer, so the crit is extremely helpful. The damage that you're going to get across, he's constantly using his skill and his ultimate to allow these things to come up. Follow-up attacks are part of it as well, getting an increase to those as well. So, because it's following, like, literally par for par what he does, it's very difficult to find an exact character that can do this. There are a few characters that technically can be helpful. Technically, characters like Himiko, Herta, Jade, all do have follow-up attacks technically in their kit, and crit damage isn't a huge negative to these kinds of characters either, considering that will be helpful, and they all do like to have damage in their skills and ultimates, specifically probably talking about characters like Herta. So getting some of this extra damage, even those other 5 stars as well, like Rift you were talking about, obviously they're going to love their own personal light cones even more, but looking even at a 4-star, could also use this light cone. I'm starting to see a little bit of a similarity there between the two characters.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. But now let's move on to the next section. Now that we've talked a little bit about the characters themselves and their light cones, let's actually get into our questions section about these videos. And with the first one, we're going to kind of decide, do you actually need either of these characters on your account? Looking specifically at Sunday, looking specifically at Jing Yuan, how valuable will the character actually find a placement on your account? And so first off with Sunday, he is a Harmony unit, which automatically we kind of all know at this point in Star Rail, Harmony characters just have a lot of intrinsic value, no matter what kind of niche they may fall into, just because having a character in the team that is buffing whatever your damage dealer is kind of essential to just team building, especially with a turn-based RPG like this game. So, and seeing the new meta that we might be getting, kind of going into the summon type meta, we have yet to see these new characters that have been leaked a little bit, kind of like Aglia. There are a few others there. There's actually a lot, but seeing a summon meta, I feel like Sunday is definitely going to be a very valuable character for that, and kind of all of these new teams that might come out of just 3.x, right? On top of that, though, even without being niche like that, he still is providing these other very good buffs that really any damage dealer likes. He's giving both crit rate and crit damage, but also just some other things like I think a universal damage bonus you're seeing there. Just the crit alone is very good, so he can be kind of like, you could think of him almost like a replacement for Sparkle. Sparkle is probably going to be better on the crit damage side and giving more skill points for the team. That's kind of like what she does. Sunday is going to really help characters that have a summon, kind of like Jing Yuan, and kind of why I think they are putting Jing Yuan's rerun alongside of Sunday, because Jing Yuan actually seems to be one of the best units up to this point, that is, for Sunday to have really good synergy with. Now, when we get into 3.x, I think there's going to be a lot of characters that are going to have summons. Just even looking at a character like Aglia's splash art, she is, I think, an Ice Remembrance character, but in her splash art, if you've seen that, guys, she's got like all of these mannequin-looking things around her, and that's just kind of giving off the vibe to me that those might be her summons that she has. So that's something to think about. Any team you have, though, moving forward that you use a lot of summons, if you already have Jing Yuan, I think Sunday is going to be one of Jing Yuan's most favored supports, where previously we've been using characters like Sparkle, you can Robin, Ronmei. Harmony characters kind of have a very high flexibility because they're kind of helping really anyone you place them, especially characters like Robin. Ronmei is specific to break, but can still be used in other teams. But I think getting really specific, Sunday is probably the best support for a character like Jing Yuan to really increase the damage of Lightning Lord, because really that is the main damage in Jing Yuan's kit, is seen through the Lightning Lord dealing the follow-up, but also being a summon, Sunday is going to be increasing the damage even more. So maybe using Sunday and Robin together for Jing Yuan might be something pretty crazy.
Yeah, so overall, besides that, you've already kind of talked a lot about this, Rick, but once again, the teams are just kind of going into making sure you're following that follow-up attack with both these characters. Both these characters are going to work alongside of each other. Probably what we're going to see similarly to the second half of this banner as well. A character like Firefly and Fugue, or however you're going to say her name, is kind of that same way. You're kind of using that idea with the two characters, using them together. Once again, that's the reason why I believe they're bringing back Jing Yuan's next rerun, I should say. It'll probably be a long time till we see him again after this. Keep in mind, also just jumping back to the other question, because, now we're looking at what kinds of teams are you trying to build. That question kind of just comes down to, overall, make sure that you're not pulling Jing Yuan because you just want to have a really good teammate for Sunday right now. I understand that it's probably going to be very, very tempting, and those 6 weeks are going to be extremely long without a possible character to have to kind of put together, and maybe even a little bit, maybe an extra few weeks. But like Rift was talking about, Aglia, other characters that we've seen kind of been thrown around, characters that already have splash arts out, characters that actually might be something worth into looking at. Aglia being that Lightning Remembrance can actually be someone that you actually want to use in the future, and like Rift was talking about there a little bit. So keep in mind, if you do want to possibly have that, look towards getting Sunday, but also keep in mind that the Amphorius characters also might have a possible Harmony unit themselves that we believe that we don't know if it's necessarily going to help with other characters in the Amphorius roster, or maybe they're helping other characters. So maybe try to look a little bit ahead as you are thinking about that.
Definitely, for sure. And then kind of, I guess, focusing a little bit more on Jing Yuan for both of these questions, like, if you actually need Jing Yuan. If you don't have Jing Yuan but are looking for erudition, I would say probably only be looking at Jing Yuan and thinking about it. If you're just really struggling in your AoE or multi-target teams, if you have like your hunt teams already covered, you're really good with bosses, APOC's not an issue for you, but you struggle in pure fiction, Jing Yuan may have a placement in your account. It's just that, even early on after his release, people kind of placed him in a very mid area. Like he couldn't really break out of A tier and into anything higher. They even called him like mid Yuan. So he might have a hard placement in terms of comparing him to what is meta. He just can't live up to that, especially like with the break teams and all of just 2.0 and onward. But with that said, if you already do have Jing Yuan, once again, Sunday I think will be pretty good. So it's more so like what Vixen was saying, just because you are going to be getting Sunday and you like Sunday doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I need to pull Jing Yuan because that's the DPS in the game that's getting the most benefit out of this character. I really like Sunday, because I think, like Vixen said, that's going to be quickly overturned just by these new characters we might see in 3.x. But moving on to our next question, this is actually, do you need the light cones, and are they worth it for you? Now, we already did go over them and their super impositions, so you can go to that timestamp if you did miss those or don't remember. But in terms of the value for the light cones, with Sunday's light cone, he is a harmony unit. He's going to get a lot of buffing capability on top of what he already can do for his light. I mean, the light cone's awesome because he's already giving a lot of crit rate, crit damage, and then follow up damage as well for the summons, right? And that's going to be really good. The light cone giving energy back to Sunday, and it's only 6 energy at S1, but that may be just enough though to get him to full. We may see something where if he's only using a 4-star light cone, you might see a consistent like sliver that's missing. Sometimes even people saw that with a character like Rappa. One thing people did notice, and I think, Vixen, you can attest to this because you do have Rappa and Lightcone, is that you could consistently get really close to having your ult back after using all 3 instances of Rappa's damage inside of her ult. And then you're like right there, and it's like kind of annoying that you don't have it back to just kind of have her on no cooldown, to where you can just be using all 3 attacks in the ultimate. Oh, I have my ultimate again. Use ultimate. Okay, I have all 3 attacks, and just kind of chain it. So maybe without Sunday having his light cone, it might be a similar story just because it is giving some energy, and it might feel really comfortable just having the light cone to fix that, because that can be a big deal, especially in a turn base like this, where having your ult back can really change how everything plays out. We know it's like that for Robin, with Robin's light cone giving her some energy. If Robin can have her ultimate on cooldown, and with that advancement forward for your whole team, that really gives you an upper hand for fighting a boss or getting a second chance at dealing some damage before you run out of cycles for certain content. Who knows? We might see a similar thing there. But other than that, I think it's a very versatile light cone, even if you aren't pulling Sunday and you just want something better. Technically, it is better than a lot of 4-star options, and you just can't wait to get a different or personal light cone for another Harmony character. You can settle for this. I think Ting Yun can use this pretty well to give her the energy back as well, and she's not a limited character, but still a very powerful character, so you could use this on her. That's one way you could go, and if you want to do it, then go for it. But enough said about that. Let's look at Jing Yuan's light cone. But Vixen, I'm going to actually ask you, what are your thoughts on the value of this light cone? Do you think a player with or without Jing Yuan, either way, should be looking at Jing Yuan's light cone?
I think overall, and this is also going to dive into a little bit later when we talk about Eidolons, being an older character, being the whole, I think he's going to have a very small time period, a small window in 2.7 of his strength, of showing him back in almost the actual, what Jing Yuan is actually represented like in the story, being a very powerful being in the universe. But with him as a character, we don't really see that too much. And I think that we might just get a little bit better of a character through Jing Yuan by getting the light cone, by putting Sunday together, and possibly even that first Eidolon as well that everybody talks about. So I think overall the light cone is borderline necessary for him, kind of like one of those other characters, older characters in Biber de Lune that we've also talked about on here as well in the Topol and Outopos. Those light cones as well as those Eidolons really start to become, once again, borderline necessary to just keep on par and even still be less than what we see in the current roster for characters. Also, my fear is just with the future characters, already looking forward into this, Sunday almost being a little bit of a timestamp to be like, hey, by the way, we're getting this character ready for these other characters in the future as well. And so I think Jing Yuan's going to have a very maybe short time frame where he's extremely strong, and maybe he'll get even better with the other characters. But I do think the light cone is extremely helpful for him. So if you want to get Jing Yuan, make sure to grab that light cone. Beyond him, we've already talked about the other characters in the other section with the light cone. If you want to go back to that timestamp, go ahead and check it out. You can put it on some other characters, but Jing Yuan obviously is going to work it the best. Looking a little bit further beyond the light cone zone, let's go ahead and talk about Eidolons. Now, At E0, I think Sunday works perfectly fine. I think a lot of his buffing capabilities and strengths really start to come in. He kind of pulls from different areas of harmony units, buffing damage, overall damage, no matter what it scales on, crit, which is also very helpful for a lot of the DPSs that actually want to use it. And then we have an actual help in energy as well. So giving energy back to a lot of characters, especially those erudition characters that starve for it. And even a character like Rappa, which I know is a break team and you wouldn't really want to use Sunday on really too much, but some of those maybe future characters that we're looking at also might have issues. So there's a lot of good use at E0 that I think comes from his kit. That being said, if you are looking at Eidolons, let's go ahead and look at his first and second Eidolon. Sunday's first Eidolon is Millennium's Quietus. It states that when Sunday uses his skill, it allows the target character to ignore 16% of the enemy target's defense, and their summons ignore 40% of the enemy target's defense when they deal damage, lasting for 2 turns. So we're seeing a lot of 2 and 3 turns with his stuff, but I mean, this just goes to show you, and I believe Aglia is going to do something special where she's going to do some damage, but her summon's going to do even more. Pretty sure that's how a lot of those Remembrance characters are going to work. So if that's the case, 16% is good and all, but that extra 40% for a harder hitting summon than probably the main character is going to be absolutely insane for the E1. I think the E1 shines. But let's look at the E2 as well to see how it kind of fares. It's called Faith Outstripes Frailty. It states that it recovers 2 skill points after using the ultimate for the first time in battle. The damage dealt by the Beautified is increased by 30%. So we're getting an extra 2 skill points, which we're starting to steal even a little bit more from a character like Sparkle, a different Harmony unit, as well as the damage is just further increased for those characters that are in the Beautified state that you use in the ultimate. So I think overall that E2 is extremely strong. I think it's really good. It starts to maybe complete making the character and the teams a little bit more flexible and actually using, especially with a hyper carry DPS or something like that, that might be a little bit more skill kind of costly, the skill point costness. So I would just kind of keep that in mind. But I do think the E1 outshines it just a little bit. But Rift, what about Jing Yuan and his Eidolons here?
Yeah, so looking at his first Eidolon, it states that when Lightning Lord attacks, the damage multiplier on enemies adjacent to the target enemy increases by an extra amount equal to 25% of the damage multiplier against the primary target enemy. So essentially just more overall damage, because you do want to be, as you know, he is an erudition character, you do want to be hitting multiple to kind of get the maximum damage that he, you know, just the potential that he has. So this is pretty powerful. It's nothing like really goated. I think he can live without it, and that's live, not comfortably, but he can live without it because, once again, he is just an older character. So the argument could be made that he kind of just needs it, and I'm going to kind of vouch for that argument that he kind of does need it just as an older character, much like how we were talking about in Bible de Lune. Just older characters, if they do want to keep up and be competitive with the newer stuff, the only way they're going to do it is just more vertical investment on them, and that means pulling Eidolons, pulling their personal light cone if you don't already have it. That's just kind of, you know, the fact. And if they want to keep up, because power creep is just an inevitable thing that we're going to see at some point, and we already have started to see that. Looking at his Eidolon 2 though, it states that after Lightning Lord takes action, damage dealt by Jing Yuan's basic attack, skill, and ultimate increases by 20%, lasting for 2 turns. Now, I think Lightning Lord is going to be, you know, doing and taking his action at least once every 2 turns. So this is kind of giving a permanent uptime to just Jing Yuan's overall damage that he does. This isn't buffing Lightning Lord at all. This is only buffing Jing Yuan's basic, skill, and ultimate. This is personal damage for him. So in a basic sense, the ultimate really is just a glorified version of the skill. You'll notice that the skill just does damage to all enemies and then adds 2 action points to Lightning Lord. The ultimate does double the damage that the skill does to all enemies and gives 3 hits per action to Lightning Lord. So it's essentially the same thing, just more powerful. So his personal damage is somewhat present, and this is going to up that by 20%. So that's definitely really good. I think, though, because Lightning Lord is the main focus of damage for Jing Yuan, you really are just building up the hits per action for that. It's a follow-up, it's a summon. I think you're going to see more out of Lightning Lord investing into Sunday than you are going to be investing into Jing Yuan, or just investing in the support for Jing Yuan. If you do want Jing Yuan to be competitive, though, like I already said, Eidolons are probably a good idea if you just want to see your Jing Yuan do well in the more current content. Not to say he can't do it without it or do some crazy stuff. I'm sure if you're just completely, just different from the rest of us and absolutely smart with how you play the game and without these like really perfect plays based on like when you use the ult, speed tuning your characters or something like that. I think it's just going to take a little bit more vertical investment to make him comfortable with what we do see and have. And with Aglia seeming to be one of the newest characters for 3.0, she is a lightning remembrance character, seeming to have summons, and Sunday's coming out right now in this upcoming version. So I really feel that Aglia is going to directly power creep Jing Yuan in every way, just because she's going to have the summons, and Sunday's going to help that 100%. Not to say that Jing Yuan is going to be absolutely useless after that. It's just that, well, there's just going to be a better option, most likely. That's just kind of the feeling I have.
Yeah, I think overall, Jing Yuan's Eidolons, the ones that have always been talked about the most, at least from what I've heard, is the E1, the E4, and the E6. Actually, with the E4, sometimes a lot of people are saying is like extremely good. So I definitely think that if you're going for one of those early Eidolons, that E1 definitely shines out the most. Well, looking a little bit now that we've kind of looked at the characters and hopefully some of those questions answered, any of the questions that you guys may have had, we hope that this video could help you decide on which character you want, whether or not you should be getting them and their light cones, and we're looking to the future a little bit more. And as always, if you guys liked the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Check out our Discord as well, as it is in the description. Thank you guys for watching the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.